They said I was gone. It's very hard to listen. That's what the clock on the wall said when the machines went silent. I remember the sound first. Or maybe the absence of it. 1 second the monitor hummed beside me. The next it was only rain against the hospital window and a nurse whispering, "She's gone." They covered my face. I remember that part too, the soft weight of the sheet, the way the air changed, how the world itself seemed to take one long, final breath. And then, nothing. Or at least that's what death was supposed to feel like. But a few hours later, I felt cold, not the kind of cold you fix with blankets, but deep, metal table cold. My back ached, my fingertips were stiff, and somewhere far away, a door creaked. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. Hi, I'm Evelyn Mae Brown. Some folks call me Granny Eve. If you're hearing my story for the first time, take a second and subscribe because what happened to me that night still keeps doctors whispering and believers praying. Stay with me till the end. I promise by the time it's over, you'll think about life, death, and what comes after a little differently. The smell hit me first. Not flowers or disinfectant, just cold air and metal. I could hear water dripping somewhere. When I opened my eyes, the lights were dim blue, and rows of silver drawers lined the walls. The morgue. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. I tried to move, but my limbs felt like stone. Then footsteps, slow, measured, coming closer. I thought maybe it was a nurse, maybe someone realized the mistake. But the steps stopped halfway across the room. "Hello?" My voice cracked like a whisper inside a cave. No answer, only that dripping sound. And then a faint exhale. Like someone standing right beside me, breathing. My heart thudded once, weak but real. For a moment I wasn't sure if I was alive or dreaming. Maybe both. Because when I turned my head, I saw something move in the shadows. And that's where my story truly begins. Not when they said I died, but when I woke up. In the cold room, perfect. I remember thinking, this must be a dream. Maybe my mind hadn't realized I was gone yet. Maybe the soul keeps seeing things even after the body gives up. But the sound, it was real. That soft shuffle of feet on the tile floor. That slow inhale and exhale, too close to be imagined. "Who's there?" I whispered. My voice was barely a sound, thin and cracked. But it echoed off the steel walls like a secret too heavy to hide. No answer, just a faint rustle. Then I heard it, a drawer sliding open. Metal scraping against metal. That's when I remembered where I was. In this place, drawers didn't hold supplies or sheets. They held people. Cold people. Dead people. A chill ran down my spine. I tried to move, to sit up, but every muscle screamed. My chest burned. My breath came in short gasps. I looked down, tubes gone, IVs gone, gown wrinkled. Just me. And that white sheet they'd laid over me hours before. I wanted to pray, but even words felt frozen in my mouth. Then I saw it movement, slow and deliberate. A shape stepping out of the shadows, tall, thin. Wearing a white coat, a doctor. Relief washed over me so hard I almost cried. "Doctor," I rasped, "please help me." He didn't answer. He just stood there, half in shadow, half in that cold flickering light. I could see his face now, eyes wide, pale as if he had seen a ghost. He wasn't breathing, just staring. And then he said, almost to himself, "This isn't possible." He took a step closer, and I could hear his shoes squeak on the floor. His hands trembled as he reached for the corner of the sheet. He lifted it just an inch and froze again. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" I tried to nod, but my neck barely moved. I blinked once, twice. He dropped the clipboard he was holding. Papers scattered across the floor. I pronounced her dead," he whispered. 3 hours ago." For a long moment, we both just stared at each other. Me, the woman who shouldn't be breathing, and him, the man who had declared me gone. I could feel my pulse now, faint but steady. A warmth spread through my chest, slow but sure. The doctor turned and ran for the door, yelling down the hall, "Get a crash team, she's alive." But before he reached it, before the room filled with lights and voices, I felt something else, a hand, soft and warm, resting on mine. I turned to look, but no one was there, only that feeling, gentle, calm, almost familiar. That's when I knew I hadn't come back alone. I've never been the type to scare easy. I've buried loved ones. I've faced sickness, loneliness, pain, all of it. But that night, lying on that cold metal table with the doctor shouting for help, nothing scared me more than that touch. It wasn't rough or cold like a human hand. It was warm, soothing. It felt like sunlight after a long storm. I remember whispering, "Who's there?" No answer, but the warmth didn't fade. The sound of footsteps echoed in the hall outside. Doors opening, nurses rushing, their voices filled with disbelief. She was gone 3 hours. How is this possible? Check her vitals now. They lifted me from the table and placed me on a stretcher. Machines beeped. Lights blurred above me as they wheeled me down the hallway. But through all the chaos, that warmth never left my hand. Every time I blinked, I saw flashes, faces from long ago. Like memories flickering behind my eyelids, my mother smiling in her Sunday dress. My husband, young again, waving from the porch. My son, laughing in the front yard with his little red ball. I could feel them. Not see them, not hear them, but feel them, like echoes of love that refused to die. The nurse who was pushing the stretcher leaned close to me. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" she asked. I nodded weakly. "You were gone," she whispered, almost afraid of her own words. "Completely gone. We moved you to the morgue, but something made us check again." "Something," I managed to whisper. She hesitated. "I thought I heard singing." I frowned. "Singing?" She nodded. A woman's voice. Soft, coming from the cold room. "That's why I went back. That's when I saw your hand move." My throat tightened. Singing. I hadn't sung in years, not since my lungs started failing. But somehow, that's what she'd heard. They brought me back to my old room. Machines surrounded me again, lights blinking like tiny stars. Doctors argued, nurses stared. Someone even cried. But I barely noticed them. I could still feel that warmth in my palm. When I looked down, I saw faint imprints, like fingers had just been there. And suddenly, I remembered something my grandmother used to say when I was a child. "God don't always knock loud, baby. Sometimes he just holds your hand so you know you ain't alone." That thought stayed with me, because even when the machines started beeping faster, even when my heartbeat struggled to steady, I knew the truth. I wasn't supposed to come back. But someone, or something, made sure I did. When I woke up again, the room was quiet. Morning light seeped through the blinds, pale, uncertain, like it wasn't sure it should be there. The same doctor stood at the end of my bed, hands in his pockets, eyes fixed on the floor. He looked like a man who hadn't slept all night. "How are you feeling?" he asked softly. "I don't really know," I whispered. "Like I've been asleep for years but dreaming the whole time." He nodded, still not meeting my eyes. "You gave us quite a scare." I smiled weakly. "So I've heard. You thought I was gone." He sighed deep and heavy. "Not thought, Mrs. Green. We knew." He walked closer, pulling a chair beside my bed. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, in a voice almost trembling, he said, "I need to tell you what happened." The room felt smaller suddenly, like the air was waiting to... "I checked your pulse myself," he said. "Twice, there was nothing. No heartbeat, no breath. You were gone for nearly 15 minutes before we transferred you to the morgue." I listened quietly, hands folded in my lap. He continued, his eyes darting toward the window as if afraid of his own words. "But before I signed the final report, something strange happened. The monitors, the ones we'd already turned off, flickered. Just once. And then, I swear to you, I heard. He stopped, looked at me. What did you hear? I asked. His voice dropped to a whisper. I heard humming. A tune. Old gospel, I think. My heart skipped. What song? He rubbed his forehead, trying to remember. I don't know the name, but I remember the words. Something about the river and going home. Tears filled my eyes. That was my favorite hymn, Take Me to the River Home. My mother used to sing it every Sunday. I hadn't sung it in years. He looked at me then, finally, fully. You were singing, Mrs. Green. When I came back into the room, you were lying there, no pulse, no breath, and your lips were moving, singing. Then your heart started again. He leaned forward, voice shaking. I've been a doctor for 25 years. I've seen miracles and heartbreak, but I've never seen that. I could only whisper, maybe it wasn't me. He blinked. Then who? I smiled faintly. The same one who gave me that song in the first place. For the first time since I'd met him, the doctor smiled, small, uncertain, but real. I don't know what happened, Mrs. Green, he said quietly, standing to leave. But whatever it wasn't science. No, I said. It was mercy. People ask me sometimes, do you remember what it was like when you were gone? And every time, I just smile. Because how do you explain something like that? Something that isn't seen with eyes, but felt with the soul. I remember. Stillness, not silence, but peace. Like the world had exhaled and everything was finally calm. There was no pain, no fear, just warmth. Wrapping around me like sunlight through a window on a cold morning. I didn't see streets of gold or angels with wings. What I saw, what I felt, was love. Pure, endless love. It was like every hurt I ever carried was being washed away, one tear at a time. And in that warmth, I heard a voice. Not loud, not thunderous, gentle, familiar. It said, "You're not done yet." I wanted to argue. I really did. I was tired, so tired. My bones ached, my heart felt heavy from years of living and losing. I whispered back, "Please, let me rest." But the voice just smiled through the silence and said again, "You're not done yet." Then I felt something small, warm, soft, slip into my hand. A hand, not the one that held mine in the morgue. This one felt like it belonged to a child. I looked down, and though I didn't see a face, I knew it was my granddaughter. The one we lost years ago before she even had a chance to grow. She didn't speak, she didn't need to. Her touch said everything. Go back. They still need you. And then light. A blinding, beautiful light that didn't burn, didn't blind, just embraced. When I opened my eyes again, the morgue was gone. The doctors were shouting. The machines were beeping. But all I could think of was that warmth, that message. Now, every day I wake up, I thank God for one more sunrise. I hold my Bible close, and I talk to people like you. Because maybe you need to hear what I learned that night. Life doesn't end when the heart stops. Sometimes, it just begins again with purpose. If you're listening to this, maybe it's not an accident. Maybe someone's trying to remind you that you're not done yet either. You know, sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night and listen to the quiet, the ticking clock on the wall, the wind outside my window, the faint hum of life that never really stops, even when we think it has. I don't take any of it for granted anymore. There was a time I used to pray for peace, but what I really meant was an ending. Now, I pray for purpose, because I've learned that peace doesn't come from giving up. It comes from knowing why you're still here. That's what that night taught me. When they rolled me into that cold room, I thought my story was over. But God had already written another chapter, one I didn't even know I had left. I know some of you watching this are sitting in hospital rooms right now. Some of you are tired. Some of you are waiting on test results, holding your breath, wondering if tomorrow will still have your name on it. I know that feeling, that ache that lives deep in your chest, the one that whispers, "It's okay to let go." But listen to me, child. Sometimes that whisper isn't the end talking. It's life, trying to remind you it's not done loving you yet. I was lying on a steel table when I found out miracles still happen. Not always loud ones. Not always the kind that shake the room. Sometimes they happen in a single breath you weren't supposed to take, a heartbeat you weren't supposed to feel, a sunrise you never expected to see again. And if you're here listening to me, breathing, hoping, even hurting, then you're living your own small miracle right now. Don't waste it. If this story reached you, maybe it's because you needed to be reminded that you still have work to do. Someone still needs your voice, your love, your prayers. And if nobody's told you this lately, let me be the one to say it. You are not forgotten. You are not too late. And you are not alone. Because I've been to the cold room, and I came back to tell you, God's not finished with you yet. So hold on a little longer. There's more grace waiting on the other side of your pain. Now, if my story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope tonight, and subscribe, because I've got more to tell you. And who knows, maybe the next story will be yours.